So tonight's discussion is centering on the Jewish phoenix. We're going to talk a little bit about leadership and what it takes for a person to become a leader and maintain that leadership and be effective. And whenever I lead a discussion on leadership, the first thing that people listening say is, well, that's not applicable to me. That's for the people, the rabbis, the presidents of the synagogues, the clergy, the cantors, the CEOs, the bosses. But me, I'm just a regular person. I'm not a major leader. I'm not a major social butterfly. Why do I need to sit and listen to a class or a lecture or a discussion on leadership? But the reality is that Jewish philosophy believes that every single person was born to lead. Every single human being. And the reason that we believe that to be so is because every person contributes something unique. You were created here in this world because without you, something would be missing. There was a specific task that had to be achieved, that had to be accomplished, and for that reason alone, you were created in this world. No one else can do what you are set and tooled to do. Based on that, you have something to contribute and to teach that no one else can teach. And on that position alone, you are a leader. You are a leader because you offer something that no one else can offer. So, in fact, leadership is a quality that everyone has and everyone is required to use without exception. So, we spend a lot of time examining our leaders and exploring our leaders. I was recently talking with someone whose daughter is dating someone that's not Jewish. And this young man, the man who's not Jewish, his dad, who is a very religious Christian, was telling the Jewish man about how Jewish people are portrayed badly in the Old Testament, in the Bible. And so this Jewish man comes running over to me. He says, Rabbi, tell me, is it true? I couldn't believe it. Where was this guy saying? Is he anti-Semitic? Is he got something against me or something against my daughter? Why would he say something like that? He knows how proud I am of my Jewish lineage. And I said to him, well, you know what? He's not all that wrong. Because the reality is that in the Torah, through the entire journey of the birth of the Jewish people, constantly they test God and they make bad choices and huge mistakes, and they really are very flawed. And the Torah tells us every single mistake that they make. Even our biggest leaders like Moses and Aaron, all of them. Every single one of them. David, Solomon, you name it, they all are highlighted for their flaws and their errors. And so you can easily take a perspective and say, well, the Torah seems to have something out for our people. But the reality is just the opposite. Leadership is about real people making real decisions in real life. And real people, they make mistakes. They're not perfect. Nobody is. So our leaders are designed to endear themselves to us, to connect with us, to find a common language. And oftentimes that's in our flaws. Hey, he made a mistake, I make mistakes, we're really not that very different. So without hesitation, every single part and parcel of the Torah, someone's messing up. And from that, we learn and we grow and we improve, and hopefully we don't make the same mistake twice. In the Torah portion of Korach is without exception the same exact story. Here you have Moses and Aaron. They lead the Jewish people out of Egypt. And they take them to Sinai, and they get the Torah on Sinai, and build this temple, and so on and so forth. I mean, these guys have to be huge, huge leaders in front of the eyes of the rest of the Jewish people. And yet, a rebellion breaks out. A rebellion breaks out. And the rebellion is against Moses and Aaron. Who made you in charge, right? Who died and made you boss? And as someone that leads a very public life, I can understand that. Constantly, people are challenging their leaders. It's not always a bad thing. But here, Moses and Aaron have established their credibility, without question. They've established it in action, in results. They've done it time and time again. But it's not good enough. It's not good enough. So a band of people get together, and they're led by this man named Korach. And Korach himself is a Levite from a special tribe. But he says, no, I want to do what Aaron does. Why should he be any different than me? If he gets to go into the temple, I want to go into the temple. So, what happens? God tells Moses, all right, if they want to go into the temple, that's their mistake. But if they want to do it, hey, we're not going to stop them. So they go on and they take this incense and they go into the temple, and they all perish. All of the followers, the rebels of Korach, all perish. And so it says something very interesting. Korach himself, it says, gets swallowed up by the earth. I'm not making this stuff up because my imagination isn't that great. It says literally that the earth opened up and it swallowed up Korach. His 250 followers died in a fire. That's what it tells us. Then, subsequently, after that, Jewish people weren't done yet. They start running around a whole new group of people and saying, look what you did, Moses and Aaron. You killed those people. You killed those 250 followers of Moses because you knew that if they go and inside the temple, they perform this service, they'll be punished by death. And yet you still offered them the opportunity to do it. So because they questioned Moses, another plague breaks out and another few thousand people die. A lot of people die in this story. It's really tragic. But what's so amazing is that after Korach is killed, they still don't trust Moses and Aaron. After his 250 followers are killed, they still don't trust Moses and Aaron. And after all of these thousands of people die in this plague, they still don't trust Moses and Aaron. I mean, at some point you have to ask yourself, what does a leader have to do to establish their authority, to establish their credibility? They're here, they're there, they've done everything that they've been asked, and more, and still they're being questioned. I know what it's like. You put yourself out there, you try so hard. We see it in work, right? You get put on task, and your boss says, all right, go and manage this program, go and manage this department. And you go out and you do everything that you possibly can, and you still don't get the confidence that you've earned. That's what happens with Moses and Aaron. So you ask yourself, what does it take? And why are the Jewish people so adamant about pushing the envelope again and again and again? So, in order to dispel all of the myths and all of the rumors about who's in charge, God tells them to do a very interesting test. A test. What is the test that he tells them to do? He says, all right, I want you to take a rod. A rod, a stick from an almond tree, a branch. Large branch from an almond tree. And I want you to take it and break it off of the tree. Break it off of the tree. Same rod, long, long branch. It's off the tree, it's dead completely. Now, I want you to cut it into 12 parts. This is what the Torah tells us. So they cut the rod into 12 parts, and they write on each rod the name of one of the tribes. Reuven, Shimon, every single one of the tribes. Each one gets their own rod, all cut from the same branch. They take the branches, all these different pieces of the large branch, and they put them in the temple for the night. And Moses tells the Jewish people, tomorrow we'll see who is in charge. Close up the temple, they take the keys, they put it in a third party's hands, so no one can say that the rods were touched, or compromised in any way, shape, or form, and they go to bed. The next morning they wake up, and lo and behold, they find all of the rods are still there, but they aren't all the same. They're not all equal. What has taken place? So the Torah tells us that they wake up and one of the rods was blossoming. The rod that had Aaron's name on it, the priest's tribe's name on it, was blossoming. It had almonds growing out from the branch. And all of the other rods were dead. Dry. Only one rod stood out as flourishing. And when they saw this, finally the Jewish people said, all right, you win. You guys are meant to lead. You're meant to be in charge. We made a mistake. We questioned your judgment. We questioned your authority. We apologize. We were foolish to do so. We now see quite clearly that this is what God wants. He wants you to take the lead, and we're going to fall in line. So, the obvious question is, Korach, swallowed up by the earth, not enough to convince us. 250 followers die in a fire, not enough to convince us. Thousands of people die in a plague for scoffing at Moses and Aaron, still not enough to convince us. But when a branch from a tree gets put away and comes out blossoming with some almonds and fruits the next morning, now we are convinced. What changed? What happened in that moment that said to the people, these are the guys you can trust. These are the people that have it, that know what they're doing, they've got the right focus, they know where they're going. You can put your confidence in them and follow them and know that you're going to be led in the right direction. And the reason this story is so important is because this teaches us, if you understand what took place in that moment, in that miracle, you will understand what leadership is and how it's defined. And how we build leadership skills, but also how we find leadership skills in other people. Because leadership goes both ways. You've got to be a leader, without question. You've got to be a leader because you've got something you have to provide to the rest of the world. But at the same time, you've also got to find leaders. You've got to find people that you can look up to, that you can trust, that you can learn from. So whenever we talk about leadership, we always have to be mindful that we're talking about it in two fashions, from two perspectives. Us being leaders and us finding leaders to lead us. And this miracle, this episode teaches us both what to look for, but also how to lead ourselves. So, what took place in the miracle of the sticks, it was not a miracle that taught the Jewish people that Aaron is meant to be the high priest. Because let's face it, they already knew that. They had already seen everything that had taken place time and time again. They'd seen all the miracles that had been done before, all the tremendous things. They'd seen this rebellion squashed instantaneously. They knew that these are the guys that are meant to be in charge. That was never really in doubt. So what took place with the miracle of the fruit? They didn't learn who was meant to be in charge. They learned why. Why? Why was Aaron chosen for this tremendous task? And sometimes the why is just important as the who and the what. You have children, anyone that has kids knows, or anyone that's in a position of education knows that as a child grows and matures, it's no longer enough to simply tell them what they need to do. You have to tell them why they need to do it. Because if they fail to grow and mature in that process, eventually they will come to rebel. Because their brains have not caught up to what you are telling them to do. And the Jewish people are no different. They travel through the desert. They come out of Egypt. They get the Torah on Sinai. But as they go through this process, they start to explore. They want to understand more and more about what does it mean to be a Jewish person? What does it mean to follow the Torah? How do we lead? What are the marks of a leader? The qualities that a leader possesses? They see Aaron. They know Aaron has been chosen for this task, but they still don't know why. And they want to understand that so that they can pass those messages along to their children. Why, Aaron? Why is it you that has been chosen for this task? And that's why this special episode takes place. Because in this story of almonds growing on a dead branch, we see the qualities for leadership that Aaron possessed that made him the right man for the job. And the Jewish people, they see that, they understand, and it makes sense to them. Not the who, but the why. So, it says that in every existence, there's a life force. Every single creation in the world has an energy inside of it. This is what Jewish mysticism believes. Not just human beings have souls. Chairs have souls. Tables have souls. Everything in the world has a soul. And a soul is an energy that gives it existence. The basis for this philosophy, the basis for this belief, is built upon the fact that we believe that at some point in time, the world didn't exist. And it came from being nothing into being something. And in order for that process to happen, there had to be some kind of divine energy. And that same divine energy continuously gives life to all of these various beings around the world. That being said, the creations of the world are generally split up into 4 distinct and different categories. You have human beings, which are the apex of creation, communicators. You have wildlife, right? Wildlife, it's amazing. It can run, it can hide. Then you have vegetation. Vegetation grows, right? It's evolving, it's changing without a question. But it always has to stay connected to its roots, to its source. So it's not a fully independent creation. Whereas an animal can roam free. And then the most basic category is inanimate objects. They don't really change very much. Wood, cement, stone, these are pretty much stationary creatures. They dissolve over time, but they really don't grow and improve in any true way. Those are the 4 classifications of the creations of this world. What takes place in this story? We have a rod, or a stick, that is in which class?
Vegetation.
Well, it's disconnected from the ground. So it is no longer in vegetation, it's now in inanimate objects. It's no longer alive. But what takes place to Aaron's stick? It gets promoted back up to vegetation. It grows. It produces. That in and of itself is a mark of a connection to energy. Energy causes us to grow, to produce, and to change. So the first thing that you see from this story with the stick is that Aaron's stick is connected. It's connected. Look, it's growing in ways that no other stick is growing. Truly unique and incredible ways. That tells me that this stick is connected to something special. Something spiritual is taking place. But furthermore, not only does it get life, which life represents spirituality and represents growth and all of these things, but it grows almonds. What's so unique about almonds? They're a very healthy fruit. They're quite tasty. But did you know that there are 2 kinds of almonds? The almonds that we eat are known as sweet almonds. But there's also a second kind of almonds that's very bitter. Very bitter. And those almonds, because they are so bitter, they're actually not allowed to be served raw in the United States. They have to be cooked before they can be sold. Because of how bitter they are, some of the ingredients inside of them can actually be detrimental to the human condition. So here you have almonds that can be either sweet or they can be bitter. Can go either way. And that's what ends up growing on the side of the stick, these sweet, beautiful almonds. Aaron was a very unique guy. Aaron was known as a peacemaker. He was known as someone that would seek out couples specifically, but any parties that were dueling, that were fighting, that were arguing, he would seek them out, and he would make it his mission to make peace between these two people. How would he do it? He would go up to that person, and he would turn to them and say, "Wow, what an incredible individual you are. Look where you come from. Look who you are. It's amazing. Such a capable individual." Subsequently, people would walk away and they would say to myself, "How can I go do something bad now? Next time I see Aaron, I'm going to be ashamed. He thinks of me as this great guy that's capable of so much, and I'm going to show up in front of him as someone that's done something so despicable? I can't do that." And this was his method for almost self-shaming them into leading a good, healthy life. And when he had an argument or a dilemma between two people, he would go up to one of the people and he would say to that person, "You should know that other person feels terrible about what happened. They feel so guilty. They wish there was some way that they could repair this." And by telling that same line to both parties, each party would soften up until they understood and said, "Well, I don't want that person. They really feel guilty. They really feel bad about what they've done. Then, maybe it's time not to bear a grudge and just let this go." He was able to use those feelings, those powerful emotions, to turn things towards a positive result. Just like the almond. The almond can go bitter or it can go sweet. It can go either way. Same too are these dilemmas and discussions. When we debate something, it's not necessarily a bad thing in and of itself. The exchange of ideas, the sharing of perspectives in our tradition is something that we love. We promote constantly. When I went to school, when I went to yeshiva and I studied to become a rabbi, I spent only about an hour a week at a lecture. 1 hour a week. And it wasn't because I only had 2 classes like they have in college, and I was out binge drinking the rest of the time. 7:30 in the morning till 9 o'clock at night, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and half a day on Friday, I was studying. Super intense. But you know who I was studying with? My partners. I was studying with a study partner. Different ones, different days, and different subjects, and so on. But I rarely had lectures. Because we believe that a person can achieve tremendous understanding through debating, sometimes hotly, the ideas, the thoughts, the philosophies. Not only do I learn it from my perspective, but I get to see it from his perspective as well. And this exchange allows us to really gain strength and conviction in what we ultimately learn, which is why so many attorneys study Talmud. We teach CLE classes, continuing education courses for lawyers here in town that are built on Talmudic ethics. The lawyers love it because here you have a document that's 2,000 years old almost, and it is telling them how to debate ideas and disputes that they deal with today in the court system. And we see it from a multitude of perspectives. So, debate, discussion, in and of itself is not necessarily a bad thing. But it can go either way, just like the almond. A leader's job, Aaron's job, was to step in at that pivotal moment where the debate and the discussion could have gone in one way or the other, to step in and provide direction and focus. That's what Aaron contributed on a regular basis. He stepped in at those moments and he showed them how to take this debate, take this discussion and exchange of ideas, and keep it positive, keep it productive. Because whenever you talk about leadership, you always are difficult to find that balance. How do you know when you're stifling and when you're focusing, right? Even in your own family, you have children, you have students, you have friends, you have family, you have employees, whatever it might be. You see them grow, they become more independent and more capable, and you want them to do that. You don't want to micromanage them. You don't want to tell them every single moment of the day what they need to be doing. You want to give them that freedom and flexibility. But at the same time, you're in charge for a reason. You're in a position of leadership for a reason. You need to exercise that judgment. You need to exercise those responsibilities in a clear and effective manner. But how do you find that balance? This is what Aaron is teaching us. He understood that debate and exchange amongst people, even amongst husband and wife, that's not a bad thing. But his job was to step in at certain moments and provide the focus. Where he saw it was going to get out of hand, he wasn't afraid to step in and say, hey, gentlemen, or husband and wife, I think that we need to take this in a different direction. Think about it. That person doesn't want to argue with you. They feel terrible already. And what do you feel? You don't want to argue with them. But the reality is that once we start walking down that path, we push ourselves into a corner from where there is no return. And that is why most arguments and debates, they actually start off small. Most arguments start off small. And they grow, and they grow, and they grow, until they become huge, huge wars. Wars between people, countries, communities, synagogues. They become absolute wars. And we forget about how we got to that point in the first place. It becomes totally inconsequential. Because we allowed something that was an exchange of ideas to lose focus, to lose direction. That's what a leader does. The leader steps in and says, this is not a bad thing, but how is this going to be productive? How is this going to take us in a positive direction? If we've exchanged ideas, if we maximized that opportunity, it's time to clearly choose a path and move forward. Period. Close the book. End of story. When you've got a wound, all the doctors can debate. They can all argue about what they think the most effective treatment is. But once the doctor in charge issues an order, you've got to follow it. You can't have different doctors, different residents or attendees arguing about what the treatment is, each one providing their own treatment to heal the situation. That's a recipe for disaster. There's a popular TV show called House, all about a doctor. It's very intelligent and very arrogant and rude. And he often has his team arguing about their diagnosis, vehemently opposed to the other person. And once House issues his judgment, everybody follows suit. No matter what their personal opinion was, there's one focus, there's one treatment now for this patient. That is the only way the patient will have a chance for survival. How does a person achieve that direction and focus? How are you able to find two people that are opposed to each other, that are arguing with each other? How do you find the ability and the strength to pull these people together and lead them forward in a focused and determined and unified manner. Because it sounds great. And Aaron, I'm sure he's a high priest, he's a big guy, who knows what his special secret is. But how does a simple old person like me find the ability to move people from a discussion to a consensus, to a conclusion? Because we both know that if you don't find that focus, this is going to get way out of control. So how do we nip that in the bud? And Aaron shows us how he was able to do this. You see it in the miracle of the rod itself. The rod, that stick, that branch, it was dead. It was absolutely dead. Before it was placed inside the temple, if you looked at that rod, what did you see? A branch, right? Maybe if you're a camper, you saw a walking stick. But you didn't see much else. But you know what, Aaron? Aaron saw something else. He saw something different than the rest of us. He saw a branch that could yield fruit. He saw that. And that's why his branch, and only his branch, ultimately brought about those almonds the very next morning. When he saw two people arguing, when he saw someone not doing the right thing, he didn't see them arguing. He didn't see that person doing something wrong. He saw the potential of that individual. And that's what he conveyed to that person. So if he saw two people arguing, he saw what it would look like if these people got along. How beautiful it would be. How wonderful the exchange of ideas could be if it was focused and determined in a specific, positive, productive direction. How this couple could exceed and excel if they were given this focus, if they were pulled out of their own arguments. Because he saw that tremendous potential, he was able to convey that to the people that he touched. See, when you sit down with someone, you sit down with a child, you sit down with a friend, and you tell them how terrible it is what they're doing. And the fact that you've seen all of these things and it's horrible. It makes you so sad. Why would you do something like that? Are you thinking? Are you conscious? You're making a huge mistake. All you've done is reinforced a negative behavior. You've reinforced a negative behavior. And if you're on the receiving side of that, the one thing that you walk away with is, I'm bad. I messed things up. And I probably can't fix it. And you know what? Even if I do manage to fix it, I'll probably make the same mistake again. Because this is who I am. I'm a failure. I'm a misfit. I'm a bad husband. I'm a bad wife. I'm a bad child. I'm a bad employee. Whatever it is. That's all I heard in this discussion from my leader. The only way that you're going to inspire and motivate that person to make a change is if you truly believe in them. If you believe in that person, if you see them not for what they are right now, but for what they can be, and you convey that optimism, that hope to them, then there's something to fight for. There's something to aspire to. This is not me. These mistakes, these arguments, this is not me. This is something else. I'm better than this. That's what Aaron did. Aaron saw the tremendous potential in every human being. Every person. He knew that they have a soul. They have a divine spiritual energy that's sitting there inside of them. It's not tarnished by these arguments. It's just waiting. It's waiting to be expressed. And when he showed that trust, that confidence in that individual, it motivated and inspired these people to transform their lives, to move beyond their petty arguments and make something better for themselves. And that's the mark of a leader. That's what a leader is. A leader is not the person that has the loudest voice. A leader is not the most beautiful or most handsome guy in the room. A leader doesn't necessarily have the most money or even the most intelligence. None of those qualities make a successful leader. A leader is one thing. A leader is someone that sees the true potential of a human being. And by seeing that potential in that human being, they're able to inspire and motivate people to truly internalize that in their own day-to-day lives. And that's how you bring about change. That's the only way to bring about change. So Aaron was a tremendous individual without question, but he lived a long time ago. Long time ago. And this message is an eternal message. You may not find Aaron roaming the streets of Jerusalem today. God knows I was there. A lot of people that actually look like Aaron. But those are not the people that you want leading you around. Those are the crazies. So how do you find your Aaron today? We talked about what it takes to be a leader. But also, importantly, you have to find people that are qualified to be your leader. Well, here are some of the qualities you have to look for. When you sit down and talk to someone, do they make you feel better about yourself? Do you walk away from that interaction and feel inspired, motivated? Do you feel empowered? Ask yourself that question. If the answer is no, then that's not the leader that you need in your life. And it doesn't matter if they're your rabbi in your synagogue, or they're your cantor, or they're your mother, or they're your father. There are no rules about who the leaders in our lives should be. Male, female, old, young, and in between. Everyone's different. Everyone responds to different things. And everyone connects to different people. But one thing is universal. Every person needs leadership. So if you don't have that person in your life today, you've got to find it. You've got to find someone that you can trust, that you feel sees the best there is in you. And will work every time they talk to you to bring out that tremendous potential that you have that's laying dormant there inside of you. Because that's what Aaron did. And we believe that there's leaders in every generation. Every generation there are leaders that are out there that are willing and able to provide guidance and direction to our people. And that's why we've survived over these thousands of years. Because we've always had tremendous leadership. We've always had people, men and women, that have been willing to step up and stand up and saying, I am going to be that person. I'm not going to shrink from this responsibility. I'm going to embrace it. That's what it takes. That is what it takes. And this is what the model of Chabad truly is. If you look at the Chabad movement, the philosophy is built on each rabbi and his wife moving to a community because they see the potential that exists there. People ask you, what potential? What do you see, Rabbi? I don't see anything. I see a lot of Jews. I don't see a lot of Jewish community. So why are you doing it to yourself? What's the point? Why are you making yourself crazy? You're moving your family, it's difficult, it's hard, it's not a vibrant community. And I turn to them and I say, I don't know if we're looking at the same town. Because that's not what I see. I see a huge bustling mecca of Jewish celebration. I see kids going to Jewish schools. I see parents picking up their children from Hebrew schools and going to youth groups and joining together Friday night and Shabbat for big lunches and dinners and davening together and celebrating together and bar mitzvahs and weddings. That's what I see. I see kosher restaurants and bakeries. I see people turning to one another to help each other through a tremendous crisis, like the one that we've experienced in the last few years. That's what I see. And that is what I believe in every single time I sit down with a person. I see that person for what they can become, what you can become. And if you will share some of that vision, then you will find yourself moving in the right direction and becoming that person that you can truly be. That's the model. That is what we all strive to create, each in our own simple way. You can look out at the world around you and you have a choice to make. Everyone, every single person, unless your eyes are wide closed, tightly closed, or you live in the Himalayas somewhere, you have a choice to make. You can look at the world and see it for what it is. And that's a pretty scary place. It's promiscuous, it's permissive, it's dangerous, it's fast-moving, it's conflicting and complicated and confusing. You can see that. Or you can see what the world can be. And a tremendous fabric of people of multiple ethnic backgrounds and diversities, religions coming together and feeding each other, building this beautiful mosaic, each one helping the other in ways that they can. That's what you can see the world for what it can be. That's a choice we make every single day. We open our eyes, we make that choice. Do we want to see the world for what it is, or do we want to see the world for what it can be? And by developing our sense of new reality, developing our ability to see beyond what meets the naked eye, we can become better leaders. Each in our own way, each in our little part of the world that we touch, we can become truly impactful, powerful leaders, just like Aaron. All you need to do is take a stick and make it grow. And we know there are lots of sticks all around us. And if we're willing to take those sticks and make them grow, we will see tremendous change from the people that we touch. That concludes tonight's discussion. Next week, we'll be talking about something extremely sensitive. We'll be talking about grief and grief counseling, how we approach saying goodbye, which is always something very difficult, but yet something that we can use tremendous perspective in helping us get through it. I want to thank you for tuning in tonight. As always, you can email any and all questions to askmendy@gmail.com, askmendy@gmail.com. We also want to remind you that now is your opportunity to place an advertising or sponsorship in our annual calendar, which will be going to print in a month. You can find more information on our website at ChabadSouthTampa.com. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.